Dr. Shabir, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
It's my pleasure to be on.
Now, Ramadan is the month of the Quran, so I thought it was appropriate to ask you, how should Muslims connect with the Quran?
Well, in many different ways, but if you allow me, first I want to just pick up on that idea that the month is connected to the Quran.
Great.
Because in Surah 2, verse 185, it says that it is the month of Ramadan in which we reveal the Quran as a guidance for humankind. So the Quran was revealed during the month of Ramadan. So it's appropriate then that when Ramadan rolls around, Muslims are thinking, Quran, what are we going to do? So one way as a community that Muslims get connected with the Quran in Ramadan is that in many mosques, we will have a trained reciter leading the prayer, and he will recite one portion of the Quran each night so that by the end of 30 nights, all 30 portions are completed. And that's all done from memory, which is quite impressive that people take the time to memorize the whole book, and then they're able to recite this like this in a kind of a public performance. Is not so much the right word, but it is a word that is commonly used to depict a person doing this.
And they could be corrected by anybody in the audience.
That's right. And some
congregation,
yes,
I should say.
And naturally, as human beings, even though one has memorized the thing perfectly and reproduced it in school, especially for your exams, when it comes to the actual performance on the ground, you may slip up. And even if you knew it a half an hour before and you read it perfectly a half an hour before, you could forget at the moment. That's the way the human mind works. So the corrective may come from another person who is one of the followers in the prayer, who has also memorized that portion. And sometimes it's interesting that one may not have actually memorized the portion, but because they know the Arabic language and they can sense that something is not quite right with the way that verse was just read, and they might offer a correction that way as well. So it's very interesting to see this dynamic at play. The imam or leader in prayer reciting from memory and somebody correcting from the rear, who also is schooled and trained in the recitation of the Quran. It gives Muslims the confidence that the Quran has been memorized and preserved in the hearts of the believers, and that nobody can take away the Quran from the Muslims. In the past, of course, Muslims had to live with this possibility that there are enemies out there who may try to blot out the religion and destroy the Muslim religious scripture. That's not our situation today. Today, we have a reversal in which non-Muslims are interested in the Quran, and many who are scholars of the Quran are not Muslims, but they have the academic interest in knowing the Quran, knowing its exact wording. They're learning the Arabic language and so on. And they're studying the Quran inside out.
So Dr. Shabir, you've mentioned one way of connecting with the Quran, but what are other ways? Because, we could also think about reflecting on the meaning and message of the Quran and trying to apply it to our lives.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought me back into track here because I was getting, sidetracked with one dimension here. But yes, the important point is for individuals, ourselves, to be closely aligned with the meaning and the message of the Quran. So even if we attend the public prayers in the mosque where it is being recited in Arabic, it's good to have a little pocket-sized Quran with you so that you can follow along. Ask the Imam, which portion are you reciting tonight? Read that portion for yourself in the English translation so that as he's reading and he mentions some familiar words like Jannah, which means the paradise, or Jahannam, which means hell, we will get a sense of where he is within the longer passage that you have already studied in advance. And read the translation afterwards as well, on your own. Don't wait for it to be done in the mosque for you or with you. You might not even attend the mosque, depending on your circumstances and where you live and so on. Nowadays, with COVID-19 still being a factor and still, the risk of it still being out there, some people will choose to pray at home, which is a good choice to keep oneself and one's community safe. But then one can be focusing on the Quran on one's own. So reciting the Quran, trying to recite it in the original Arabic, if that's feasible for you, or at least look at the English translation or a translation in the language that you are most familiar with. and try to ponder the meanings. Like the Quran invites us to think about what it says. The Quran says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. Have they not pondered the Quran? In Surah 4, verse 82. And we have, for example, the Quran is asking again for us to do what is called tafakkur, which is, again, a different way of pondering or thinking about the deep meanings of the Quranic text.
So do you have advice for someone who wants to ponder the Quran? What should they do?
Well, I think every big task becomes easy when we break it up into smaller portions. So we need to take something that's manageable for us and do it regularly. So, for example, the Quran has about 600 pages in a commonly printed Arabic text. So if you say, okay, I'm going to read 20 pages per day, then in 30 days you'll finish reading the entire Quran, right? But if that's not easy for you, because 20 pages of reading will take you about half an hour to 40 minutes at a reasonable pace. But if you say, okay, I'm just going to read 1 page per day, but I'm going to make it consistently. I'm going to make it consistent. And then you pick a time when you can actually make it consistent. So maybe it's at your breakfast time. So you say, over breakfast, I'm going to make sure that I'm reading my page, and then I'm going to have my breakfast, and so on. So this way, in a disciplined manner, you can actually finish 30 pages in 1 month. And then, you progress with this. And eventually,
then you can apply it in your life too, right?
Exactly. Then you know the meaning, you know what it implies, and you're willing to carry it out.
Thank you for that, Dr. Jaber.
You're welcome. You can change someone's life this Ramadan. Donate as much or as little as you can and be part of our project to share the message of Islam to people across the globe. Visit QuranSpeaks.com and donate. Your contribution is zakat eligible and tax deductible. May God keep you safe and healthy. May God bless you and your loved ones with the very best always.